Hello, welcome back to Educate Ebony. We're now on episode 3, and if you listened in last episode, I spoke with Scott Kay from Voyager, and we had a great old chat about Devin Townsend and his album Ocean Machine. For my listening notes, Scott said to really just tune out the world and focus in on this album. And when I did come around to listening to it, I was actually in Tasmania, and it sounds lame, but being in nature for me is a really calming experience, and I did do a walk around Dove Lake at Cradle Mountain, and to me it was just the perfect place. It felt so big and open and quiet, and so just popped the album on. I tell you what though, I have never heard a more atmospheric album. Scott was definitely right about that. Also, like in the album, the crickets and the storm samples that Devin added in there were really cool. Like, how do you know that was going to fit with the track until you put it in there and be like, oh yeah, ace. It was just very intentional, and I feel like I noticed that aspect in the song transitions. There was just enough silence between songs to let you regroup, or sometimes they merged together and evolved into the next track. I just really loved that, I think. But my favourite song is definitely Regulator. I think it's the rhythm that I really like, but also Devin's vocals are so multifaceted. Gosh, it's just too good. So big thanks to Scott for coming on and telling me all about that album. That's a keeper. But let's get into this episode. Don't forget to come and find me on all socials at Educate Ebony and, flick some stars my way as well. Okay. All right. For this episode of Educate Ebony, the prog edition, I would love to introduce Monique Pym. She is the marketing coordinator at Overdrive PR, where she works with a bunch of clients from many different genres. And she's also the electric frontwoman of alt-prog band Reliqa from Sydney. And you may just recognize that band because they created the Educate Ebony intro track. It's honestly better than I could have ever imagined, and I still listen to it. I still listen to the whole thing every time I edit one of these episodes. So a huge thank you very much to Reliqa, and Mon, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me. I am so excited to be here, and thank you for liking the intro. Yeah, I always listen to it as well. I won't lie to you. I didn't have too much to do with it. I don't play guitar. I don't play bass. I don't play drums, but they are legends. They are miracle workers, and I really enjoy it too. So I'll always, when I'm listening to one of my many Educate Ebony binges, I'll be sure to listen to the intro as well.
And be like, we did that. Yes.
We did that. Well, I didn't, but they did that.
You were there. You were in there.
Yeah, I was somewhere in the mix. Yeah.
Oh, it's so good. Well, it's great to have you. And I am interested to know, because I feel like, I don't want to say that prog is like a niche genre, because it's not really anymore, but it's still something that maybe people sort of find themselves falling into in an unusual way, or they stumble across one band or something and it kicks it off. But how did you first get into the progressive genre?
Well, yeah, it's sort of something that you don't really choose to do. I know a lot of bands set out to specifically carve their own path in terms of their genre and where they want to be. And definitely we did have that kind of mindset. But at the same time, we never really knew where to place our music. And so I think we've just kind of been almost, it's been like the prog crown has been thrust upon us, I suppose you could say.
It fits well.
I still am unsure, if that even is us. We've got a lot of metalcore influence, but naturally the clean vocals that then kind of takes that in a more progressive metal route. And then just a little bit of the technicality behind it, kind of, again, a bit more progressive. That's a tricky question, because I wouldn't say that we have specifically set out to become a prog band.
Yeah.
It just kind of suits us. The bands that are within that industry, we go well together with, the Monolith Festival lineup, for example, we fit really well with Carnival, etc. So yeah, we're kind of just taking it in our stride, and this is where we are now. And whether we will be here in the future, who knows? We're still young. We're still finding our sound, very much so. And it definitely has a big, the outside influence is a big part of that. You know what I mean? Whatever people say we are, that's what we are, I guess.
Yeah, I guess so. Because you can say yeah, we're this band, and everyone's like, oh, they're a prog band. And they'll be like, well, that's what I hear. So that's what you are to me, I guess.
Yeah, well, exactly. And that's fine. It's kind of a choose your own adventure type thing when it comes to, I could sound like a prick when I say this, but we don't define ourselves by genre. It's not quite like that. It's more just there are so many different sounds and genres out there that we enjoy and we draw from. So whatever it ends up becoming, if that's prog, great, we're a prog band. I'm so fine with that.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, you're right. It is a particular niche, but I guess it is gaining popularity, especially since there's combinations between like prog and almost the more like even electronics side of things. Like, for example, bands like Polyphia, who you would call a prog band, they're also doing like remixes with like rappers and stuff. So I think that kind of thing is sick. And that's definitely the type of avenue we would want to be going down. So yeah, I guess that works for us.
Cool. I'll stay tuned for the future. Damn. But let's get to I don't want to say the good stuff because that was also good, but let's get to the real big question. What is the one prog album I need to hear?
So this is a tricky one because admittedly, I don't listen to too much prog. I'm not a prog listener. I am a metal listener, 100%, and all metal branches, heavy branches, I guess you could say. I'll listen to anything really. That's such a good segue from what we were just talking about. But I think that the album that I want to present you with today, Ebony, is System of a Down's Toxicity.
Cool.
I know it's not a prog album, but there's definitely, if you're talking about like the progressive as an adjective, I guess you could say, like progressive something, it's definitely progressive something. It's a wild ride. It's got a little bit of everything. And I think that best sums up what prog is. So I think that it works really. Like, it was the best thought I could think of. And it's one of my favorite albums of all time. So
I definitely get it.
Absolutely.
I definitely get it because before, when I was, fresh into metal in the heavy world or whatever, and I didn't know what new metal was, but, you hear System of a Down in there, and I haven't listened to this whole album, but, random songs everywhere.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah, you first hear these guys, and to me, I would have been like, cool, the genres that I know, this would fit into the progressive because it is progressive in their vocals and their instrumentation and like everything and the way they like structure their songs. So I would call this a progressive album for sure.
100%. And really, you can argue any album into any genre. You can fit it into anything. If you're looking for the right things, you're looking for the right elements. And you're so right. The vocal, some of the melodies, it's definitely got that progressive feel. And even just the subject matter of the album, how like politically charged it is. I mean, that's so new metal, really. That's so early 2000s new metal, the political rage. But like, it ties in really, really nicely to that genre and just to everything that I listened to. It was a bit of a gateway, I guess you could say, for me. And it's always just stood the test of time, that one. And it's a cult classic. So it had to be my pick for today.
Oh, awesome. Well, when did you first hear it?
I was thinking about this. The first time that I heard it would have been in my brother's car when he was on his P plates, and he would have been driving me to like dance class or something like that. Since then, he has fallen out of his, I guess, metal phase, heavy phase. He's not really into that anymore, but I definitely latched on and didn't let go, as you can see. Yes. I'm probably like 5 years older than he was then now. I remember hearing, I think it wouldn't have been the whole album, but like it definitely was like a couple of tracks. Like you said, like maybe even the popular tracks, Chop Suey and like Toxicity title track. Yeah, I would have probably been about like 13-ish when I first heard it, and I was addicted. I was obsessed. It was, like I said, a bit of a gateway, just the emotion behind it and how different it was. Oh, I think a big clap of thunder is coming. No, we're good. Setting the scene for the album.
Love it.
Yeah, I was about 16 when I first heard it, and it was very different from the 13, very different from the social scene that I was currently in. I was just starting to make music with the band that that you now know, Miles, Brandon, and Shannon, but now Ben. Yeah, beginning of high school type thing. Emotions were high, and it's just one of those stories where music just, it sticks to you. And yeah, I think addictive is the best word for it. Something about Serge's passion, like behind the vocals, like being a vocalist, obviously that like you connect to that the most a lot. I just kept coming back, and then I explored more albums. Their album Mesmerize was another one that I was thinking of for today because they're both like probably my favorites of theirs. I mean, Hypnotize is really good as well. Like, yeah, you've got Hypnotize and Mesmerize. They're kind of like a back-to-back type thing. But Mesmerize and Toxicity were definitely the two that I would keep coming back to. And yeah, like that's kind of the origins, I guess, for like where we are now. I definitely take a lot of inspiration from System of a Down when it comes to my own music.
Ooh.
Yeah, it's good shit.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I guess for like a 13-year-old going into high school, I mean, looking back now, you're like, yeah, damn, I was young. They're a heavy band. If you said like a heavy political statements as well, to like go into that and listen to it, like first thought is obviously, oh my gosh, this is so cool. And being like, gotta learn all the words to chop suey. But then did it, I don't want to say broaden your mind because that sounds lame, but was it sort of like oh my gosh, this is what's going on in other parts of the world and everything like that?
Yeah, well, like I think that you find that a lot in a lot of different music. Like all of it, you're right. It broadens your mind. It expands your horizon beyond your immediate circle. And as you're growing through your teens and stuff, your circle just gets bigger. You like your vision, your empathy for other people. And I mean, I won't lie to you. The first few times that I listened to the album, it didn't sound like anything. It just sounded like pure rage and excitement. I think one of the best parts about it, one of the parts I like keep coming back to about System of a Down, one of the reasons it's so addictive, like, is because it's just this perfect balancing act between actual, real, heavy subject matter that is so important today. Like it really stands the test of time, and just taking the piss, like pure chaos, I would say. Like
it is.
You're really jumping between. I think I remember seeing a meme about this exact thing. Like some of you out there, if you're listening to this, you might know the exact meme I'm talking about. But like, yeah, within 20 seconds of a song, it'll jump from like talking about like the prison system. Like for example, in Prison Song, I don't know like exactly if it really bounces around as much as I'm talking about for the rest of the album, but like talking about some really serious like the need for reform in the prison system in America and stuff like that. And then it just bounces into like, I keep saying the word bounce because there's actually a track called Bounce on the album. So like, it's just in my head.
Yeah.
And it's just nonsense almost, I guess you could say. And I think that's like, they're very snarky. They're full of attitude, full of heart. And that's the kind of thing that keeps you coming back and keeps you listening to what they have to say, because it's all like, they definitely they wear their hearts on their sleeves, I guess you could say. And if it was just pure politics the entire time, like it might not be able to engage some of the listeners who, I definitely am not one of these people, but the kinds of people who are like, just stick to music, mate. Don't like I don't know. It's so dumb. Like even saying that to Tom Morello and shit, it's like, dude, do you know who you're talking to? But like,
do you know how many degrees he has?
Yeah, exactly. Like political science. Yeah. It's just that's the kind of thing that I think makes it like even more enjoyable. And it really just shows that they don't give a fuck. You know what I mean? Like apologies for my swearing.
No,
but like,
swear away.
Yeah. Do you get that? Like if you've heard any of their tracks, you might understand what I mean.
I've heard probably like, it's going to sound really bad. 3. I'm sure there's more in there as well, but like, I know 3 for sure, and probably 2 of them are off this album.
Yeah.
But it's just sort of like...
Chop Suey and Toxicity.
Yeah, and then is Aerials on this one as well?
Aerials.
Is it on this album?
Songs. Yeah.
Oh
yeah,
my God.
is.
Okay, so it's just this album that I've heard.
Oh, cool. Well, listen, like they're popular tracks for a reason. And like it's when people say, oh, like I only know the singles, and like people give hate for that. I think that's ridiculous because they're singles for a reason. They're popular for a reason. They're like the most listenable. They're the most widely enjoyable, singable. Like one of the parts that I love about this album is that it's so singable. Like those 3 tracks in particular, like the anthemic choruses and the harmonies and everything. Like, yeah, that's part beautiful. Of like where it absolutely is. Like that song Aerials, like is stunning. Like, I mean, here I am talking about the chaos behind their sound and like the bouncing between politics and absolute madness, like borderline gibberish, but like that's what makes it so powerful. Then you got tracks like Aerials, which you could call like straight up like radio rock, I guess, but at the same time it's still got that really beautiful nuance to it and the meaning behind it. It's just, yeah, I particularly have a soft spot for that song, and like zero shame that that's one of the only ones you know, because it's one of the ones I keep coming back to. It's just beautiful.
Yeah. What is the meaning behind it? Honestly, for me, I don't often listen to the lyrics straight up. It takes me like a lot to be like, oh my God, I'm singing the lyrics, but that's what they're talking about. Like it doesn't connect for me. So what are they saying?
Yeah, well, I mean, like admittedly, like this is one of the albums where like I don't necessarily always listen to it with the lyrics in mind. It's like sometimes you can feel it without listening. Like, I mean, being a vocalist, that is one of the primary things that I listen to, like that I listen out for is the vocals, the melodies, and stuff like that. When you talk about this album as a whole, it's very like if we're talking meaning, it's like very anti-establishment. Police brutality is like a big theme of it. Like obviously these guys are like they do come from a different background. I'm gonna sound quite ignorant for not knowing. I think that Serge is Armenian. Forgive me if I am wrong about his nationality.
A quick Google. Armenian.
He is
You're
Armenian.
correct.
Yep. I thought so. Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, the fact that they come from a background that is quite war driven as well, like they do have a very big political mindset. Like, I truly cannot speak to it because I am not educated enough to be able to talk about these types of issues. But you can really feel the anger and the protest behind their music throughout all of it. Like that's definitely a core theme of the album. Even just like existentialism, like even in that track Aerials, one of the lyrics, like now I've got that song in my head. One of the lyrics that keeps coming back to me is like life is a waterfall. Like that's like one of the key like motifs of the song. And yeah, just the human experience, what it means to be human, what needs to change about living on planet Earth, even a bit of environmentalism, like in that song Science, I think the lyric is like science has failed Mother Earth or something like that, like one of the chorus lyrics. And these are all things that I feel super strongly about. And yeah, again, it's part of like, I keep coming back to this word, but it's part of that addictiveness of their music. It's just something that it makes you want to learn more. It makes you want to listen more. It makes you want to absorb as much of this information as you can and just scream it out into the world. Like obviously, you know, just being some nobody in Australia, I can't necessarily relate to all of the experiences that they've been through, but I do know that Serge is a pretty powerful like political activist for like his Armenian culture and stuff like that. Following his Instagram, there's a lot of humanitarianism in there. So it's kind of like, yeah, since it's an early 2000s album, but it has definitely stood the test of time in terms of its themes. One of the things that I was thinking about, like whenever I listen to this album, is like a lot of the early 2000s material that we listened to and that we loved maybe back then, like as we were growing up, some of it hasn't aged too well. You know what I mean? Like just lyrically, and you're like,
can't say that anymore.
Yeah, you know what I mean? Like wouldn't really say that anymore. But like, I don't think that's the case here. Like everything that I have experienced through this album, it very much has aged really well and it stands the test of time and it's still very much relevant, which in fact is kind of the sad thing. The fact that it is relevant, because a lot of the themes are very brutal and violent, like lots of violence. So if anything, it's almost a bit of a prophecy, that album, I would say, because we've really just been going in the direction that they speak of. And they've made music fairly recently. Like they've got a track, came out last year, I think, 2020, like Genocidal Humanoids. And I think if that tells you anything about
in 20 years time.
Yeah, exactly. That could belong on the same album. You know what I mean? They've always stood true to what they talk about. And I respect that a lot.
That's very interesting. Because you think about albums like this where, you know, they're talking about climate change and police brutality or whatever else. And it's like, were they progressive for their time or have we just not evolved?
That's such a good question. And
it's probably both.
I think it's a little bit of both. Yeah, it's like these are the types of people who really care about their community and they're making music because, well, obviously not just because, but like by creating music, they have a platform to talk about the ways that we could shape our future. You know what I mean? Like that you've got a very powerful level of responsibility and voice, I guess, when you're an artist of that size and in those types of circles. So yeah, I guess it's a little bit of both. Like the fact that they were speaking out back then is almost like a bit of that could have, like musicians like that and like Rage Against the Machine could have steered the path, like, and steered the protest into like a positive light so that in 20 years time we don't have to be saying the same thing over and over. But I think in some way we all know that like patterns are patterns and we're going to keep going down the same route. So it's kind of exhausting, but it's cool because it means that we can relate to the music from the early 2000s and connect with it, sadly, but importantly, you know what I mean? Like being democratic members of our society by raging against the dying of the light.
Hell yes. So poetic.
I know it's disgusting, but like, yeah, you know, these are the types of things we got to talk about, right?
Yeah, literally. It's almost like if, let's just say that we had evolved and we're all amazing humans and the government system isn't corrupt and everything, and then looking back on an album like this, you would almost be, I don't want to say like reminiscent because you don't want to glorify those days or whatever, but like in a way you'd still relate to it, to be like, look, that's where we came from and now we're here.
Oh, 100%.
It's not the case now, but yeah.
Yeah, and I hope that in the years to come, like, I mean, obviously protest music will never die because there will always be something to protest about, but I hope that in the next 20 odd years we can look back and say, hey, we've come so far. That's awesome.
Yeah.
I mean, I've got my fingers and toes crossed. I'll tell you that.
Oh, well, let's bring up the mood a little bit.
Yeah. I'm honestly not like, I want to be politically engaged. I do. I want to be an active member of society, but that steered in a direction I was not expecting.
Thanks, System of a Down.
Yeah,
Great.
you know, yeah. That's why I also love the quirkiness. You know what I mean? It keeps things lighthearted at the same time. It's almost just like that attitude of like, like everything's shit. Let's party.
But still talk about it, but let's also have a good time. But yeah.
Yeah, that's right. And that's kind of the right kind of balance. And yeah, I just love this band so much.
Oh, that's so good. Well, let's, take you again back in time to your life. Tell us about your life. But when did it become an important album to you? It's like you got into music, you started making bands and making tracks. When were you like, actually, I do pull a lot of influence from this album or this band?
Yeah, well, it's had a couple of little impact points on my life. You know, the first one being like its gateway sort of drug feeling, you know, like being one of the albums and one of the bands that sort of nurtured my way into the heavy music industry. And then, of course, as I began writing, and to this day, as I continue writing vocal melodies and just music in general, they definitely influence us. I mean, even our latest track, The Bearer of Bad News, it does have a little bit of that flair, I guess you could say, that a lot of System of a Down's music has. And very much so like Serge's vocal style. Like naturally, I will never be as like, I don't know if I'll ever reach that level of aggression that he will, but like the flair and the style and the taste, I guess, the flavor.
Oh, that's cool.
The flavor that's cooking. Yeah, I draw a lot from that, and it inspires me a lot. And then like, I guess even branching like into just my own personal life. Like, I mean, we've got the album on vinyl. It's very much so just to chuck it on when you're feeling a bit of pent up anger, or you just need to wash off the day, like dance off the day. It very much just like is a regular occurrence in our day to day. Just chuck it on when I'm driving as well. But yeah, I guess if we're talking like more so like to the heart influentially, yeah, I think that for as long as you listen to Reliqa, you will always hear a little bit of System of a Down in there.
I love that.
Just one of those ones that always sticks there subconsciously in the back of the mind because they're so unique, and they definitely have left a mark, like a very tangible mark on the music that we write. And not just me, you know, like I know Miles takes off them as well. Like, yes, so much to love there.
Oh, it's so good to hear. Little love letters with every song that you guys write.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's a great way to put it.
Oh, I love that. And especially when I go to listen, which will be exciting for the first time all the way through. Is there anything that you think that I should look out for? I know the vocals, amazing vocals, but are there any other cute little points that you're like, oh, we should definitely listen out for this?
Just the pure chaos. Like, I guess the probably the one thing that I would say, like, listen in for this is that juxtaposition, for lack of sounding like wanky. I don't want to be like, oh,
everyone says it.
But like, yeah, that balance between light and shade and seriousness and like just silliness, I guess. They're really tipping the scales, I guess. I think you'll feel that a lot. And such catchiness, the riffs, like It's very bouncy, very groovy at times. Drum work is phenomenal, like very, yeah, like very catchy and like I said, very bouncy feel. It's a lot more light than you would expect after the conversation that we just had, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
It's a lot more fun to listen to than I might be leading on. It's like I said, one of my favorite albums to chuck on to just wash off the day. It's exciting. There's a lot of energy behind it. It's hard to pin down like one thing to listen to, but I'd be interested to hear your thoughts when you've heard it. Definitely get back to me.
Yeah.
Tell me what sticks out to you. Yeah, because there's so much to love. I mean, I'm a little bit biased. I listened to the vocals first, but yeah, there's nothing not to enjoy. Like, I mean, it's a bit chaotic. Maybe don't listen to it when you're like in the middle of a busy work day or something like that, because I think that it'll scramble your brain a little bit.
Yeah.
But it's fun. It's a really fun piece of work.
Cool. All right. So are those my listening notes to listen to it, like to wash off the day, come home from work, chuck it on, or what do you recommend?
Yeah, I mean, being a listener of the podcast, I definitely was thinking about that. I won't lie. Yeah, like listening notes, it would definitely either be it's a great, okay, for example, like washing off the day, it's a great like housework album.
Oh,
like
yeah.
if you chuck it on just to vacuum the floors and do the dishes and just like slam it out, have a little bit of a jump around while you're doing it, makes it a lot more fun. That would 100% be a good way to listen to it. Otherwise, just a long drive by yourself, and just that's if you really want to like absorb it. So maybe that's for like listen number 3 or 4. I don't know. You know what I mean? Like, are you like me when you listen to albums that you go through like platforms, like stages of listening? Like first off is just service level listening, enjoying it for what it is.
Yes.
Then you dig into the deeper stuff, start looking at the lyrics and stuff, breaking it down a bit more. Yeah, chuck it on when you're doing a bit of housework. I think you'll have fun.
I like that a lot. There's lots of things I've put off around here.
I was going to say, if you want to make that a motivator, like I'm not going to stop you.
I hate doing my washing. So I will like leave my stuff on the line for ages. I'll take it off. I'll leave it in the basket for ages. So I'll bet by the time I listen to this, I'll have like a basket of washing in my room.
Yeah, perfect.
What's
Good
the bet?
motivator. Like, yeah.
I will.
That sounds awesome.
Definitely do it. Alrighty, do you have anything else to add? Anything else we need to know about this album?
Gosh, I don't think so. I think we've covered top, bottom, left and right of this entire thing. We've scrubbed it clean. We've done well, Ebony.
The whole record, the whole disc. I do believe.
Yeah, 100%.
I think we
enjoy
have.
it.
I will. You know what? Yes. Alrighty, well.
I hope you do.
No, I'll let you know. Alrighty. Well, there we have it. The one prog album that Monique Pym thinks that you and I should listen to is Toxicity.
Prog album.
I know. I honestly had to change it from metal album to prog album. And in my mind, it's still the one metal album. It just rolls off the tongue. But no, the one prog album that Monique Pym thinks that you and I should listen to is Toxicity by System of a Down. Mon, thank you so much for your wisdom. Can't wait to listen to it from your point of view.
Thank you for having me. I had the best time.
I did
That's
one
good.
time actually. I don't know who it was with. Maybe it was for like the Faction Radio like years ago or something. I don't know, but I was like talking away and I'd forgotten to press record and we just like slid into this interview.
Oh, yeah, see,
and then we got like 5 minutes in and I was like, oh.
Yeah, I didn't want that to happen. That's why I mentioned it.
Yeah, no, good
Hell yeah,
idea.
we're good.